Hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about thesis statements. A thesis statement should appear as the last sentence of your first paragraph. Your first paragraph is an introduction where you introduce the work and say something general about it, and then you conclude your first paragraph with a thesis statement. The thesis statement is where you state the main point that you want to make about the work of literature that you have selected, and the main reason why you think that point is true about the work. Before you start your paper, you should decide on what your thesis statement will be, after thinking about your topic and the work and doing some research. Let's consider your paper assignment for module number 2. To fulfill this assignment, you have to analyze a literary work in its historical and cultural context, and you can choose any of the readings from Module 2. So suppose you choose the poem, So Americans Are Taking Jobs from Americans by Jimmy Santiago Baca, which is on pages 1052 to 1053 in the book. Your thesis might be that Santiago does not accept negative views of Mexicans because he does not believe that they are taking jobs that Americans really want. In order to support this thesis, you will have to show the negative comments in the poem that Santiago rejects, and you will have to do some research to show that it is indeed really true that Mexicans are not, for the most part, taking jobs that Americans want. So again, the fact is that you say what you believe. Santiago doesn't accept negative views of Mexicans, and you say why you believe that. You believe that because Mexicans are not really taking jobs that Americans want. Now, let's say you decide that that's your thesis and you start to do research and you find out that you can't find information to prove that Mexicans are not taking jobs that Americans want. And instead you find out that they are taking jobs that Americans want. Then you will have to change your thesis. A new thesis might be that Santiago rejects negative views of Mexicans because he believes that all immigrants to the United States deserve a right to benefit themselves economically. In that case, you will do research to show that indeed all immigrant groups have come to the United States seeking to improve their lot economically, and specifically that that's why Mexicans came. Okay, now once you choose your thesis, you have to pick approximately 2 to 3 topics, separate topics, that you can use in order to support that thesis. So for example, if you're going to say that Santiago does not accept negative views of Mexicans because Mexicans are not taking the jobs that Americans want, you could have one paragraph showing the negative stereotypes of Mexicans in the poem and also in the society. And then you could have another paragraph showing that Mexicans are not really taking jobs from Americans the way that Santiago says that in the poem, and you can have research to show that they are not really taking jobs from Americans. And if you want to add a third paragraph, you might have a third paragraph stating that in fact Mexicans are contributing to the economy of the United States, and you would have to bring research to prove that. Now please remember that each paragraph must have one and only one main idea. Do not talk about the same things over and over again in every paragraph. Each paragraph indicates a new idea. Also, not only must you have a clearly stated idea in the paragraph, but you must support that idea with examples from the poem and from the research. So, for example, you might have the following topic sentences. 1. Santiago includes negative statements about Mexicans in the poem in order to refute them. And there you would show the negative stereotypes that Santiago mentions and also negative stereotypes that you find in your research. In the second paragraph, you might say, Santiago uses military metaphors to show that Mexicans are not really taking jobs that Americans want by force. And then you would use those examples from the poem, and you would also show from your research that Mexicans are not taking jobs that Americans really want. And if you wanted to include the third paragraph, you could say that Mexicans are contributing to the American economy. And then you would show examples, again, from your research. So let us review. In your paper, you will have an introduction in which you introduce the work, say something general about it, and you conclude your first paragraph with a thesis statement. Then you have your 3 body paragraphs, each with a clear topic sentence and support, and then you end with a concluding paragraph in which you make a general statement about what you've been trying to prove and perhaps a message that the reader can take with him or her.